There's not much to smile about when it comes to the global economy these days. A new massive tax evasion scandal, Europe's continuing economic woes, now exacerbated by migrant and terrorism crises. Add to that, slowing emerging markets. Well, to discuss these issues, I'm joined by Christine Lagarde, who's the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund. Many thanks for joining us on The Global Conversation. It does seem like the rich are destined to get richer. Despite all the talk of clamping down on illegal tax havens, we now have the Panama Papers scandal, which allegedly involves some of the world's most influential people. Do you think this scandal, these leaks, are going to change anything?
Well, they'd better change things because they only go to show that the initial work that was started back in, I think it was 2010, 2011, under French presidency of the G20 for that matter, is not mission accomplished, far from it. And a lot more work needs to be done, and it needs to be constantly upgraded, continued, because there's no limit to imagination by some.
Is it the tip of the iceberg?
That I don't know. Clearly the investigators will have to continue their work, identify what is legal from what is illegal, and decide where the balance should fall and whether changes are needed. But there's clearly more work to be done.
And meanwhile, while people are getting richer, Europe is struggling with its economic crisis and most recently facing the major challenge of the migration crisis. If we look at this in purely economic terms, do you see migration as a benefit or a burden to the European economy?
You know, we have done some really serious work studying what the impact would be of the refugee crisis and the flow of refugees to some of the European countries. And it is clear that if the right measures are taken to integrate them by way of language skills, by way of labor skills, by way of housing support, it is a net positive for those countries that host the refugees. It's first and foremost a humanitarian and a humanistic imperative. And I really want to salute Chancellor Merkel for the courage that she has demonstrated in this instance. It is respected around the world. History will remember what the German people have done and are doing.
Well, we're here in Frankfurt, which is the home of the European Central Bank. And if we continue looking at the European crisis, ECB President Mario Draghi has said he's going to fire everything he can at this crisis to get Europe back on track. But we can't help but get the impression that he's running out of ammunition.
We don't think that central banks are running out of ammunition. What we believe, though, is that they cannot do that on their own. Kickstarting economies, improving growth, having a real solid recovery will not be achieved by monetary policies alone. It will require the monetary policies, but it will also need structural reforms. It will require fiscal measures, and it's the three together that will actually help restore the economic situation of the European Union and particularly the euro area, because you're talking about monetary policies. This is imperative.
And in terms of trying to achieve more, if we look at Greece seems to be in trouble again, and there have been leaks that the IMF has said that bringing Greece to the brink might help push negotiations through. Now, I know you've said that's nonsense, but how close are you to an agreement? Because it seems pretty far off.
I have repeatedly said we need a program for that country that adds up, that reaches the objective of restoring economic stability, and where debt is sustainable in the long run. And those three parameters are still there, as alive as ever. Work has been done, progress has been made, but there is a lot more work that needs to be continued and sustained so that we're not in the realm of quick fix to pretend, but real reforms that will sustain and that will support the Greek population in the long term.
And if those reforms don't take place, what's the IMF going to do?
We certainly hope that they will take place, but as I said, it needs to add up and there will be trade-offs. Trade-offs between reforms on the one hand, debt operation on the other hand.
There's been talk as well that a possible default in Greece could time with Brexit. You know, the referendum in the United Kingdom on leaving the EU. Now, some at the IMF have allegedly said that would be a disaster. What's your take on that?
What we hope is progress and removing uncertainty. So I don't think that we should combine the two, and it's never been neither our negotiation approach nor our tactics to actually aim for that at all. The other debate concerning the exit of the United Kingdom is hopefully something that will be resolved favorably for Europe, for the United Kingdom. I don't want to interfere with the voting processes and all the rest of it, because we're doing some work at the moment in order to determine what the economic impact of any of the two options would be.
Well, that was my next question.
I anticipated.
So what do you think the economic impact for the EU, let's say, of the United Kingdom leaving the EU?
So far, I don't know, because we are doing as detailed, precise, independent work as we can. I have my personal views, which is irrelevant in the context of our discussion. The economic impact is something that we need to determine, and we will come out in May with the outcome of that work.
So if we skip to the other side of the pond, the US is obviously in the throes of its kind of election campaigning. And recently, a risk analysis firm put Donald Trump, in terms of threats, basically on the same level as jihadists. So in terms of the global economy, what does the global economy prefer? Who would it prefer in the White House? Donald Trump or presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton?
I don't take political views, and I don't have to face that choice because I don't vote in the United States. And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you, anyway. So it's for the people to determine. The IMF is engaged with countries. The IMF is serving the people. And, people decide who their political leaders will be. And we have to adjust, and we have one focus. It is stability, and it is prosperity.
So the other big elephant in the room, obviously, is China. The IMF has been sounding the alarm bells.
You should say the panda, not the elephant.
The IMF has been sounding the alarm bells on that, saying there's a risk of kind of derailment of the global economy. How at risk are we of a 2008-style financial crisis?
We're not on alarm. We are on alert because, as I said, the economy is growing. There is no acute crisis, but equally we see risks on the horizon that could materialize and that could sort of compound each other. So China is clearly changing its business model. China's growth has declined, and it's a legitimate move considering the level of development where China is at the moment. And it's a big player, so it has ripple effects around the globe. It has an impact on the Chinese supply chain. It has an impact on the price of commodities, but it's a force to work with, and a country that is contributing still a significant amount of growth to the global economy.
And finally, as you carry out what is a very stressful job, you are facing a trial. You stand accused of negligence in a €400 million payout to French businessman Bernard Tapie. But what I'd like to know is how does this affect your functions now, particularly as you've entered your second term in office?
It doesn't affect my function at all. Lawyers are doing their job, appeal is being lodged, and the process will take its course.
Christine Lagarde, many thanks for being
you.
with us on The Global Conversation.